Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, a lawmaker calls the series of power interruptions unacceptable.
2016, nagkaroon tayo ng hearing na ganito rin yung pinag-usapan. Ngayon, 2019, ganito na naman.
Insisting that heads must roll if there's a failure in securing adequate power supply.
Kung may mga hindi sumusunod na bagong planta, patawan rin ng penalty dahil tayo yung nadedehado dahil walang kuryente at tumataas pa ang presyo.
The Senate also looks into possible collusion between power companies that aims to hike power rates.
Administratively, pwede rin sila maging liable dyan. Inumpisahan na ng Department of Energy, ERC, yung pagkukuha ng mga impormasyon kung meron mang sabuatan or anti-competitive na nangyari.
Also, the president is back from China, but can the billions of deals benefit Filipinos amid disputes in the South China Sea? And addressing the influx of Chinese workers to the country. Senate Committee Chair on Energy and Economic Affairs, Win Gatchalian, joins us live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. The Senate Energy Committee launched a probe on why the Luzon's power grid was put on yellow and red alerts in recent weeks, which indicates insufficient power supply that led to power interruptions. A senator wants to know if there was collusion between companies in order to push for power rate hikes. The committee also questioned why there was a sudden drop of supply after the Energy Department's assurance that there will be enough power supply. Also, how to prevent another looming water crisis as Angat Dam reaches its critical level. And how is the government addressing the influx of Chinese workers to the country? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Senate Committee Chair on Energy and Economic Affairs, Win Gatchalian. Senator Win, good to have you again.
Thank you, Pinky. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, we spoke last week. You had this hearing on energy. It's good you had it because for weeks we were sa balita namin puro yellow at red alert ang NGCP. In summary, what happened in last week's
Pinky,
hearing?
bottom line is we have to brace ourselves for more brownouts in the next few weeks until the rainy season. And the reason for that, there are two major reasons. Number one, manipis yung reserba natin. We have very thin reserves. And number two, whenever there's forced outages, ito yung mga hindi natin na-predict o wala sa planned maintenance, then our energy supply will drop, then we will experience brownouts. So these are the major reasons why we are experiencing brownouts right now. Ngayon, ang tanong, whenever there's brownouts caused by these plants, sino ang napipenalize? No? It's us, the consumers, who are being penalized because we don't have electricity in our businesses, we don't have electricity in our homes, and the spot market, which is the market where utilities buy electricity, tumataas rin yung presyo, eventually being passed on to the consumers. So what we want now is reforms. No? And I mentioned in the hearing that this happened in 2016. We had a hearing in 2016.
Pareho.
Correct. I remember the DOE proposing several reforms. But we also saw that the reforms are not being implemented. No? Wala pang nangyari sa industriya. So what we are now mandating DOE is to implement those reforms. No? They know already what to do. The ERC already know what to do. It's just a matter of implementing it so that we will prevent this type of occurrences from happening in the future.
Okay, I want to talk about the reforms a little later on to find out anong pwedeng mangyari. Pero ano ho ba nangyari? Why naging manipis ang reserba ng kuryente?
From the onset, manipis na yung reserba natin. No? And second, there are about 6 plants that went forced outages. No?
Sabay-sabay?
Sabay-sabay. This is amounting to about as high as 1,800 megawatts. No? So that's close to about 15 to 20% of the electricity needed in the Luzon grid. And whenever you have forced outages, ang utility, which is Meralco for this matter, goes to the spot market to buy electricity to cover for those forced outages. So in effect, tumataas yung presyo.
Right.
No? Pag tumaas yung presyo, ipapasa rin yun sa atin. So what we want is a full fact-finding, and if it warrants, a full investigation of what happened, because we want to know exactly what happened? No? How come these 6 plants went on a forced outage na sabay-sabay? And we have to see the legitimacy of those forced outages.
Didn't they tell you why those 6 power...
They did. No, they did. It's all technical, but we need to determine whether those forced outages are indeed legitimate forced outages. And then second, I really feel that these plants should be penalized. No? And pagmultahin itong mga planta because at the end, it's the consumer that bears all of these disturbances. No? Both pricing and both also in their daily activities. Inconvenience.
Yeah.
No? Pinakamalaking bagay dyan is inconvenience.
So, the point really is this. Manipis ang reserba,
Yes.
nag-shutdown, nagkaroon ng forced outages, yung
Correct.
6 na planta.
Correct.
Senator, yung 6 bang planta na sabay-sabay nag-shutdown, is that normal or is that abnormal?
Well, of course, the plants will argue that it's normal, no? It's part of operation. But I really feel that the plants can do better. No? In the past, Pinky, lahat itong mga planta is all government-owned. When we deregulated it, binigay natin sa private sector because we think, and we felt at that time, that the private sector can do better. No?
Mas
Then they should do better.
nila.
Diba? They
Yeah.
should do better because if you're saying that you cannot control these forced outages and we cannot do anything about it, then you're not better than what the previous setup
Why
is.
are there forced outages? Explain that to us. Bakit?
Maraming reasons. No?
Maintenance?
The most popular no, na nakikita ko is what they call the boiler tube leak. Na umiinit raw yung boiler at pumuputok yung tubo, in short. No? And apparently these are unpredictable occurrences. But we've seen technologies advance in the power generating technology. And there are predictive software that can predict all of this. The point of the matter there is, kung walang disincentive for these plants to invest, because they're not being penalized, they will not invest. No?
Okay, so let's talk about that. What kind of penalty anong pwedeng ipataw na penalty din sa mga power plants na sabihin po natin yung naging negligible, if found out negligible?
I think the reforms that we're looking at is disincentivizing forced outages, disincentivizing unplanned outages, para they will do better, no? Because we need to compel these plants to keep on investing into technology, to keep on investing into software that will predict all of this and lower down the occurrences of forced outages. In fact, merong independent resource person na in-invite kami doon, si Professor Del Mundo, and they showed na yung forced outages in the US and forced outages here in the Philippines, mas marakayin atin. No? For the same plant, of the same year, of the same technology. So, ibig sabihin, we have more occurrences of forced outages, pero walang disincentive. Eh.
Yeah.
No? So, what we want as one of the reforms is to disincentivize that, maglagay ng penalty, maglagay ng iba pang pagmumulta, so that these plants will feel the pain and invest in technology.
I guess what I'm curious to find out right now is why would the owners of power plants not want to invest to advance in technology so that less power outages may occur?
Well, ang sinasabi nila, no, if the power plant, what they're saying is the disincentive for them, if they have forced outages, they don't have revenue. That's on their side. But paano naman yung consumer side?
But that's true.
That's
Totoo
true.
naman yun.
That's true. But what about the consumer side? Because we also lose revenue. We also lose opportunity costs as business people. And then again, we gave them the opportunity to supply us with power. No? And I think it has to go beyond their own profit and loss. And what we propose as a reform is to disincentivize it by putting penalties when you have forced and unplanned outages.
Pero sa ngayon, hindi pa pwedeng i-implement yan.
Hindi pa, no? Napag-usapan na ito actually in 2007. Ito yung there's a lot of technical terms, no? But
2007?
in 2007, sorry, 2017.
Okay.
No? When we had the hearing 2016, DOE proposed what they call a cost or pay system, wherein kung ikaw may kasalanan, you pay, no? As simple as that. And in 2017, that there was a series of study on this method, but it was never implemented. So the point of the matter here is the DOE knows what to do. The ERC also built in some provisions in their PSAs, in the power supply agreement, that will prevent this from happening. Implementation na lang ang kulang.
Bakit ganon, Senator? You have the DOE, you have the ERC, and yet this is happening.
Well, your question is as good as mine, no? And that is also the big question mark in my head. Meron tayong dedicated agency for electricity, power, energy, but this is happening to us. No? That's why we're quite disappointed, no? with what we heard in the hearing. In fact, we have to brace ourselves in the next few weeks until the rainy season
sets in.
Because the possibility of brownouts and red alerts is very high. No? And the good thing lang, no, out of that hearing is during election, when there is no work, demand will go down. May kuryente tayo during election period. But prior to election and post-election...
But Senator, it's not just elections, it's also post-elections. The day after, the second day, the canvassing, the third
In
day
fact,
after
that was
the elections.
not addressed properly because after election, there's work already. Papasok na tayo lahat.
Demand will go
up.
high. Yeah.
And we still have canvassing. No?
Yeah.
So I think COMELEC should address this issue because the data will be transmitted in the COMELEC headquarters.
Are you
They should
saying
have generators
there's
there.
no assurance from the Energy Department that there will be no brownouts in the next, let's say, 3 days after the elections? There was no
No.
assurance.
On the day itself, may kuryente. On the day after, there's no assurance. No? So meaning, wherever that data will be transmitted, which I think it will be in the COMELEC headquarters, dapat maghanda na sila ng generator doon.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. We're going to still talk about energy. We had our senatorial debate last Saturday, and we asked our candidates their take on the energy supply here in the country. We'll play that and have the senator react to that as well. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Win Gatchalian. As I mentioned a while ago, we had the senatorial debate. You saw parts of it.
A little bit.
We asked our senatorial candidates what is their proposal to solve, to have affordable, efficient power supply.
Correct,
Let's
correct.
listen to some of their answers to our question last Saturday.
Nagdibo na po ang Ipiralo. Pero ang tanong, yung pinangako ba ng Ipiralo na ibababa ang presyo ng kuryente ay naganap ba? Sa tingin ko po, hindi po naganap. Kaya importante po na kailangan balikan po natin ang Ipiralo para malaman po natin kung ito ba ay nakatulong sa ating mga mamamayan o hindi. Pangalawa, importante rin po dahil alam natin kung hindi bababa po ang presyo ng kuryente, hindi rin lalawak po ang negosyo dito sa ating bansa. Alam natin, kung mataas ang presyo ng kuryente, hindi kumukuha ng mga bagong manggagawa ang bawat kumpanya. Kailangan ibaba po natin ang presyo ng kuryente para mas maraming trabaho dito sa ating bansa.
Allergic po ako sa taxes. At pag sinasabi ng gobyerno na pag tinanggal ang tax, saan kukunin ang pondo? May pondo po ang gobyerno, gusto lang nilang waldasin sa walang kakwenta-kwentang proyekto. 3 termino po ako sa Kongreso, bilyon-bilyon po dyan para sa mga kalsadang walang beginning, walang end. Bilyon-bilyon para sa mga tulay kahit walang ilog. So tanggalin ang mga taxes, ayusin ang korupsyon, ipakulong ang lahat ng kurakot sa gobyerno.
I also believe that we have to review the IPIRA law. The intention was to bring down the cost of electricity. Dapat magkaroon ng kompetisyon, ipa-privatize ang power plants. Ang nangyari po, natuloy ang privatization ng power plants pero yung pagbaba ng presyo ng kuryente ay hindi nangyari kaya kinakailangan na reviewin ang IPIRA law. Pangalawa po, we now have to reconsider other sources of energy. No, dahil po yung coal, yung petroleum, bunker, napakamahal po. We have one of the highest costs.
All right, let's zero in on the IPIRA law. Is it time to review it?
I think among the 3 candidates that I heard earlier, Senator JV hit the nail on the head. Yes, IPIRA can be improved, but we have to focus on competition because yung spirit ng IPIRA is competition. But is competition really happening? No? Competition is happening, but it's not at the level where we want na talagang laban-laban para bumaba ang presyo ng kuryente. And I think Senator JV is also one of the senators who is introducing some amendments in IPIRA to improve competition. Ang prinsipyo, very simple. Pag maraming planta, bababa ang presyo ng kuryente. Ngayon, kailangan talagang sigurado natin na itong mga planta pumasok, no? Of course, mas mabilis yung proseso para maglaban-laban.
Pag-usapan po natin, what about the taxes first? Congressman Nery Colmenares is saying, let's take out the tax.
This is too a simplistic approach.
Is
no?
it?
Yes. And of course, when we consume, no, VAT is a consumption tax. When we consume, we have to pay tax. No? Same with electricity, same with water, and same with other utilities.
But we have the highest electricity rate in
Correct.
the region,
Correct.
sir.
May caveat rin yan, no, Pinky, after covering this for 3 years. In ASEAN, we're the only nation that does not subsidize electricity. After EPIRA, we gave the private sector the opportunity to supply us with power without any subsidies. In Thailand, may subsidy. In Malaysia, there's subsidy because they produce their own gas. Indonesia, they have their own may subsidy. Korea, they have their own subsidies.
Hence, we have the highest electricity
Hence-
rates. Ganun ba yun?
Hence, mataas tayo because government is not subsidizing it. So that's one reason. But again, it doesn't mean that there's no opportunity to lower it down. Kaya maraming mga proposals kami to lower it down, one of which nga is more competition.
Right.
The other one is the Mura Kuryente Act.
Yeah, I want to talk about the power plants because I know you have the Murang Kuryente bill as well, or act. Sir,
Correct.
sa power plants, kulang ba tayo ng power plants sa Luzon? I bring this up because there was a problem in Mindanao way back.
Correct, correct.
Wala na atang problema sa Mindanao because
Correct.
power plants were
Sobra na sila.
introduced.
Yes,
Oo,
sobra na
may
sila.
oversupply na sila. But now, what happened to Luzon?
Luzon is the fastest growing grid in the Philippines. It's growing approximately around 5 to 6% no, compared to the whole nation. That's why yung konsumo natin dito mabilis at malaki. And one of the complaints of the proponents, no, and this came from Attorney Layog when he shared his experiences in the power sector, ang hirap kumuha ng permit. No? It takes about 4 years to get your permit, another 4 years to build your plant. So by the time you supply power into the grid, it's already 8 years.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky pa, no? And that's why we need to cut red tape. And one of the things that we proposed and approved by President Duterte is the one-stop shop bill, no? In which we will reduce red tape from 4 years, hopefully below 1 year. You get your permit, you jumpstart your construction. In 4 to 5 years, you have power supplying the
Is it
grid already.
happening?
The DOE is already promulgating the IRR, the implementing rules, and hopefully within 1 or 2 months we will have that implementing rules. And again, the objective of this bill is to reduce red tape.
And maybe pwede niyo pong tutukan din yan.
Yes,
Senator,
definitely.
Murang Kuryente bill. What's happening? I know, lahat po nangangampanya ngayon.
Yes.
Okay.
This is proposed by Senator Ralph Recto, no? And he has this brilliant idea to use the Malampaya Fund to pay for the utang, yung debts and costs that was incurred during the Napocor days. Kasi right now, pag tinignan natin electricity bill natin, meron doon universal charges for stranded costs and stranded debts. And we will now use Malampaya Fund to pay for those stranded costs and stranded debts. Effectively lowering down our electricity
Tanggal sa
by
atin.
0.9 centavos per kilowatt hour in the next 6 years. So, malaking bagay yun. Kung ang electricity bill mo is about 9 peso, kung mabawasan yan ng 90 centavos, that's 10% of your electricity
True.
bill.
Yeah. And what is the fate of that in the Senate?
We've been liaising with the Department of Finance and maganda naman yung reception. And now we will be ratifying this bill because natapos na sa BICAM and transmitting it to Malacanang. And I really hope and pray that the President will see the wisdom. No? This is actually the first bill that will directly lower down electricity cost in our electricity bill.
And consistently, because tatanggalin yung isang dun sa unbundled part ng bill natin.
Correct.
Ano siya, mariremove siya. Alright.
Matatanggal yung universal charges doon sa electricity
Which
bill.
is 0.9 centavos per kilowatt hour
in the next 6 years.
for 6 years. We'll be taking another short break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Win Gatchalian from Corriente. Let's go to water. Angat Dam reaching its critical level. Yesterday, it's at about 79.93. The minimum is 180. Papaano ho ba to?
Correct. Well, there are two top-of-mind issues that we need to address. Number one, supply of water to our residences here in Metro Manila. And also, number two is this El Nino phenomenon is happening quite often. No? And we need to make sure that during rain season, meron tayong imbakan ng tubig in Angat Dam. So technology is another issue here. In other, I've seen technology wherein they build what they call a pump storage. No? So you have the dam and then you have additional storage so that when it rains, it fills up the additional storage. Pag El Nino, you have additional capacity that feeds into your
We don't have
dam.
that here.
We don't have that here. Wala pa. In Eastern Europe, in Norway, which is a very big hydropower plant user, they have that technology, what they call the pump storage. And second, we really need to look alternative source of supply of water. During our hearing in the Senate, in the next, until 2022, no, we will have problems in the supply of water here in Metro Manila. Unless we find other sources, no, we will definitely see a lot of this water shortage happening here in the metropolitan area.
Short-term solution, Senator, sa water.
I think short-term solution, they're now having small plants being built. In Laguna Lake, they're building small, I think, a plant that can supply water to Metro Manila. This is a water treatment plant.
I see.
These are small plants, though, but we need plants that can carry about maybe 1,000 million liters a day or even more that can supply Metro Manila, because Metro Manila is growing.
Yeah,
It's,
and
if you see the houses and buildings, it's obvious that Metro Manila will demand for a lot of water in the next few years.
Very briefly, Chinese workers in the country, the influx of this. You have Secretary Belli already saying they are doing something about this and that they are finalizing rules on the entry of illegal, not just Chinese, but foreign workers in the country. Isasama ko na po yung online gaming. What can be done? May 1 na po, baka daw natatanggalan ng trabaho ang mga Pilipino.
Well, natutuwa tayo, Pinky, that ang daming infrastructure na pumapasok sa ating bansa, no? Because infrastructure, kailangan mo ng mason, kailangan mo ng karpentero, kailangan mo ng mga workers na may basic skills. And marami tayo niyan, no? For example, in Valenzuela, they're putting up the subway there, no? And the depot will be in Valenzuela. And natutuwa kami because we can supply them with a lot of laborers. But it's not fair na yung mga ordinary work, no? Mason, karpentero, even operator ng heavy equipment, manggagaling pa sa ibang bansa. You have to remember, these are loans and to be paid by us, no, the taxpayer in the future. So these projects are actually our projects, no, being loaned to us. And at the end of a certain year, these projects will be owned by the Republic of the Philippines, meaning we should benefit from that. So we should also dictate what is good for our country. And what's good for our country is to give jobs. Admittedly, there are some technical work, no? Like, for example, that subway project in Valenzuela, they're sending Japanese engineers to do the tunneling, no? But it should be limited to that. Pero yung mga simpleng trabaho, no, na meron dito, dapat sa atin yan. And that's already enshrined in our labor code.
Yes.
Enforcement na lang. No? And that's why the Department of Labor should really be vigilant and much more aggressive looking at all of these ODA loans being entered into by the government.
But what about the special working permits and the alien employment permits, sir? Naaabuso ho ba to?
That should be looked at also because, to be honest about it, yung mga nakikita natin na nagtatrabaho sa restaurants, maybe nagtatrabaho sa construction, walang mga permit yun. I think they enter here to the Philippines illegally. And that's
special working permits,
correct.
siguro, sir.
The DOLE and the Bureau of Immigration should really combine forces to look at this issue. Or else we're not benefiting.
Okay.
We're borrowing but not benefiting.
And when Congress, pagbalik po ng Kongreso, I mean, pagka everyone is actively participating again, do you really want to look into this? I know it's Senator Joel Villanueva's committee, though.
One of the things that we want to introduce, there's an ODA law, no? Overseas Development Assistant Law, that we want to put a protection, what we call a Filipino worker protection provision there, that will strengthen and emphasize that work that we can find here in the Philippines should be limited to the Filipinos.
All right. Thank you, Senator Win Gatchalian. Thank you for your time,
thank
sir.
you, Pinky. Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us here on the Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines. I really think...